All right. Welcome to my stream. My name is Ryan Lowe, and I am building an Alexa skill over the course of the last few weeks and next few months. I'm not sure how long it's going to take, but welcome for the ride. So I am a technical evangelist for the Amazon Alexa team. What that means is that my role is to inspire and educate developers to build with Alexa, specifically custom skills, skills that can be played on Echo devices like what I have behind me. So part of that is that I need to be well versed on these tools myself. And so that is exactly what I'm doing. I am practicing, I'm building skills, and I'm live streaming it so that everyone can watch along and maybe become inspired or learn something. I don't know. But that is what I am working on right now. For the last few weeks, I've been working on a particular skill to assist with one use case that I have. So every Tuesday, I and a co-host, Jeff Blankenberg, get on Twitch and YouTube and Facebook, and we stream in real time and answer developer questions during Alexa office hours. And so developers are able to ask questions. We answer the questions. We're live for an hour, streamed to multiple different platforms. And when we're done with that hour, the recording gets saved and archived inside of YouTube. And over the past, number of years or months or however long we've been doing this, just been doing it a lot longer than I have. We have created a repository of hundreds of hours of archived footage. Now, these office hours are full of questions and answers, but the problem is it's really hard to extract value out of that. So if you're a developer and you just missed office hours, you had a question come up on Tuesday night, when we're done, you'd have to wait till the following week to be able to get your answer question. Now, we also have a Slack group, and we have other ways of answering questions. But one of the things that's really difficult to do is to take that question and go look for an answer inside of all the hours of archived footage. Which makes a lot of these office hours videos kind of unusable for a majority of purposes. So I had the idea, why don't we take these archive videos and transcribe them and put them into a search so that we're able to look through these and answer questions. So the end goal is then going to be to create an Alexa interface on top of that search database to be able to do things like, Alexa, show me from office hours where Jeff and Ryan were talking about in-skill purchasing, or Alexa presentation language, or one of the other topics that we have. And hopefully ask more detailed questions than that, and hopefully find where we're talking about that specific topic and maybe that specific question so that you can get the answer to it right away. So if you're just working, you can just turn to your Echo and say, show me from blah, blah, blah. And it'll zoom right to that point in time in the video from YouTube and start playing at that paragraph. And then maybe you can say next and next and next and skip through those. So that's ultimately what I'm getting to. I've been working on the back-end system of this for the last almost month or so now, so that we have a database of these indexed recordings and transcriptions. And that's actually, I'm hoping to finish this up in the next couple weeks, maybe. I think I'm getting really close. I have a bunch of the process done. I think today we're going to actually go and create the OpenSearch database and start loading data into there. It would be really cool if by next Tuesday when we host office hours, by the end of that session, we have in our database a transcription of that. And then I'll need, so I've been working on a real-time trigger. Well, I'll have to go and build a tool that will go and process old videos. So I think that's going to have to be something that we're going to have to build here, is just to go and build that entire collection in the past. Once we feel good about everything working, I don't want to have to reprocess these video files over and over and over again. So I think that'll be next before we start working on the front end piece. And then we'll be able to search and have all kinds of fun. So let me switch over to, this is so I'm doing all this, I'm open sourcing it. Anyone can follow along, and I'm using the SAM CLI and framework, which sits on top of CloudFormation. So anyone can take this repository, clone it, and deploy into their own AWS account this entire infrastructure. which is really, really cool. And so this is what I'm building towards. As you can see, this diagram is being built like in real time. So I built the proof of concept of this a few months ago, and I have like in my head rough ideas of how this is going to all come together. But there's a lot of things I didn't have answered, and I still don't have answered, including like the real-time signal from YouTube. I think I have an answer to this. We will find out over the next couple of weeks whether that answer is actually working or not. And I'm learning a lot about the life cycle of a YouTube broadcast and archive, which is fun. Not something I was setting out to be an expert in or know anything about, but here we are. That's where we're at. Okay, so this is the infrastructure. I'm using as much serverless technology as I can. My dogs are barking. I'm trying to use as much serverless technology as I can. I'm getting ready to create the Amazon OpenSearch, which used to be Amazon Elasticsearch before they branched it. I'm getting ready to create that today, and that is going to be a server. So ideally, you're running OpenSearch in like a big cluster. For our purposes, I'm going to create just a cluster of one node because I don't want to pay for a bunch of extra services. If this thing scales and goes crazy, then yes, maybe we'll make this a cluster. There are serverless database technologies, but they don't give us the full text searching that I'm looking for that OpenSearch has. But kind of working backwards from the database over here, we're also using Amazon Transcribe and Comprehend to take the videos and transcribe them. So pull out the text and then using Comprehend to kind of make structure and sense out of this text, and maybe pull some tags out of it too, to say, here's what this paragraph of text was really talking about. This is all working great. The output of this process is a bunch of JSON files that we should be able to just save right into OpenSearch by the end of the session today. I only have an hour today because I do have a meeting, but we'll see how far we can get. I think we can get pretty far. And then the previous, kind of working backwards, we're using Amazon Media Convert or AWS Media Convert to take the downloaded file from YouTube and convert it over into a file format that we're comfortable with, that will work with Transcribe. And then I've built an API gateway to receive a notification from PubSub, which is a notification service to tell us that there is a new YouTube video available for us to go and process. And I'm storing metadata inside of Amazon DynamoDB. I'm not sure what I'm going to use that for, but it just seemed like something that I wanted to save metadata around these videos, like what the title description was and so on. Because maybe I'll process other files besides just office hours. And so I will want to be able to search based upon the title. If it was a Tech Talk, Alexa Tech Talk, or some other video series, we might as well go grab them all and start processing them. And so this is where we're at. Again, I haven't gotten to any of the Alexa skill stuff. And one of the things I've been working on the last week or so has been this trigger. And just to catch everybody up, because I did a bunch of work offline to try and figure out what was going on. What I've come to realize is that the events, the life cycle of a YouTube video is actually really interesting. So last week, what we do is we broadcast to YouTube in addition to other destinations all at once. And I got 2 notifications from PubSub about this session. So the first notification I got was when we scheduled the office hours, which was actually 2 hours before we went live, but it could have been 6 days before we went live. Like that, but that notification has information on about when the stream is supposed to start. So great. So I can take that and I can say, hey, state machine, start. But the first thing is don't do anything until this timestamp, which might be 6 hours, might be 6 days from now. And then when the live stream is happening, there seems to be, they seem to give you file formats in a particular streaming fashion that are not available later. So I got my second event about midnight after we went live. And that notification was kind of, I'm not sure what it was, but basically it was synonymous with the video is available on side the YouTube channel. So if you went to in between, if you could watch the stream live on YouTube, but if you went to like videos, past videos, it isn't there until about midnight, and that's when I got a second notification. And that file I was able to process really, really well. It included a stream that I was kind of expecting, a stream format. When you call the API, you get a bunch of different formats. That second one had what I needed. The first one, I was really struggling being able to process it and download it. I was getting download files of like 1 megabyte, which I knew were not right. So this whole process will work. The first event will come through. It'll wait for the live stream to start, and it'll try to download, and that'll probably fail on Tuesday when we do this again. But then the second event, when it comes through, when the file is kind of finalized and loaded in the library, that one will process. So I want to find a cleaner solution to this. But until then, like it should work. It did work, I should say, and it did run through. If I come over to now my AWS account, this is my CloudFormation stack that gets deployed. If I come over here and find the resource for my state machine, I ran this a few times, but it is running. So we're able to run through the entire thing. It downloads the video, it waits, it processes the video, it runs it through transcribe, and then it runs it through comprehend, and then the output are transcription files inside of S3. So if I come now over to and look for my S3 resource, the bucket got created from my infrastructure. We can see here that it did output the text. There's a folder called podcasts, which I should say, like a lot of this I'm taking from this blog post where they're doing the exact same thing, but using podcasts instead of what we're doing YouTube URLs. So I borrowed a bunch of code there. But here you can see like this file, what's the latest one that got dropped? Let's just go ahead and download this and I can show you what's in this. So this should be, let me pull this over into, oh, actually I already had it open. So this is what the end result looks like. It has like the start time. And again, we get a lot of this from comprehend and transcribe. So here we can see like the start time and end time of like this paragraph of text. So here's the text. This is exactly from office hours. You can see like it's tagged and it has like a link to it. So there's all this metadata. This is the metadata we want to store into OpenSearch. So we'll go ahead and do that. I'll probably rename this folder at some point from podcast to text response or text output, something like that. But first we got to do a few different things. And so this blog that I'm following also used Amazon Elasticsearch. This blog was written like a little over a year ago. If I do a search for Elasticsearch inside this blog, this is the CloudFormation for the blog. Here we go. Here they're creating the Elasticsearch domain, which is the basically the database itself. It's creating the servers and launching the instances and setting up Cognito for authentication, which is something we're going to have to do so that you can log in to Kibana and actually do visualizations and query and all that good stuff. So we're going to have to start here, but when this was originally built, they were using Elasticsearch, and I want to use OpenSearch. So if I come over to my CloudFormation documentation, there should be very similar structure. You can see that OpenSearch replaces the legacy Elasticsearch, so that's not even being supported long term. So we want to come over and start creating this infrastructure. So let me close all this out. This is my local machine where I'm doing all this coding. I don't need any of these files. I'm so happy to not be messing with YouTube for the next little bit at least. I was not having a great time running through all that. The other thing is I've been messing with my internet settings. So I'm using Starlink internet. I live in the middle of nowhere in Arizona, And so my uplink has not been super reliable. So I'm trying to mess around with that. I tried doing a stream in 720p. The text wasn't coming through at my resolution. Obviously, I could change my resolution so that it's been broadcast in 720p. I really don't want to do that. So I'm just hoping that my internet connection is good enough. And maybe I need to sign up for that new Starlink Premium, which is a little expensive. But anyway, let's come back to what we're doing here. So we want to create the Elasticsearch domain. This is the resource name I'm going to give it. The type is going to be AWS Elasticsearch domain, and we have to give it some properties. So I'm going to start by looking at the properties that the blog post gave it. And kind of work from there. Oops, this needs to go up there. So they have a dependency on Cognito. So we'll have to take a look at this in a second, but let's see what this actually requires. Okay, so now I'm looking at the documentation versus what I'm authoring locally. Okay, so Cognito options still is something there. Domain name is there. Here they're referencing, I'm guessing this is a input. So yes, it is a parameter. So let's create a parameter. I'll call it OS domain because it's open search. Type will be a string, and I always like to give it a default. So let's give this office hours. That should be fine. Yeah, let's call it office hours. Okay, so now let's come back down here. Where was that? Here. Okay, so now we're giving it a domain name. Let's see what else is required for this. EBS options. ZBS options is not required. Let's keep it. Advanced options. Indexes. Let's see. Is there advanced cluster permissions? We'll just go ahead and leave those as they are. I'm assuming that the blog authors were better Elasticsearch admins than I ever was, although I have run a cluster before. But it's a lot of work. Okay, Elasticsearch cluster config. I'm assuming this is changed. And what I'm looking for is where it's cluster config. It's just the name of it now. That makes sense. Okay, dedicated master enabled false. Instant count 1. Instance type. We need to make sure that we get the right instance type. Okay, so cluster config. Let's look up this. Instance count, instance type. Let's look at what types are. We want like the smallest possible. Interesting. It looks completely different than that, which is fine. Let's see. Do they have an example of this? Instance type. Yeah. We may. Okay. So the other. So this didn't really give me what I was looking for. I was looking for like the string value of the instance type. But what we can do also is I'm building all my infrastructure using CloudFormation, running through SAM. But you could also go into the console here and build out infrastructure. And sometimes I'll go in here just to see what the options are, and then I can copy and paste that back in over. So let's pretend to create a domain here. I won't actually go through with it. Yeah, I do not want something large. This would be something for me to spend time on to figure out like what exactly all those different options are. General purpose, small search. That seems fine for right now. Let's also do this. Open search pricing AWS. You might want to use a T3. I see T3 is now available because this is, again, from the blog post, which was written a while ago. So things change quite a lot. Okay, so T2 small. Basically what I'm doing is I'm comparing this versus the one that they had, which was T2 small search. Yeah, I definitely want to do T3. It's got 2 vCPUs. And we're not going to store that much data, so I think 2 gigabytes should be like completely fine. Okay, so let's do T3 small search. Okay. Zone awareness enabled. Okay, and then let's go back to our documentation. What's next? Do we need to specify? Yes, engine version. So it's no longer Elasticsearch version. It's engine version. And let's see here. 1.1, I think, is what we want to specify. Engine version. Let's look at the documentation. Yeah, we want to do 1.1. So it should be Elasticsearch 1.1. Okay, now let's come back to these Cognito options. So Amazon Cognito is identity service, so you can like manage users and logins and things like that. And I believe this is going to be it's not required. So here, as I'm building this out, enable custom endpoint, deployment type, data nodes. So there are different options, SAML or Cognito. We want to do Cognito, and then we got to specify a lot of stuff. Okay. So I don't want to muck around with SAML, but I do. Cognito is fine with me. But I need to create Cognito user pools and identity pools and all this fun stuff, which I'm assuming the blog post has already worked out for me. So again, if I come down to here they're creating a bunch of Cognito stuff. So let's just copy and paste this and review it. Okay, so they've created a resource for the unauthorized role. So when someone's not authorized, they tie that to an identity pool value. Great. Same with the auth role. Great. Now they're creating a Cognito identity pool. I'm kind of glossing over all of Cognito. Cognito is not a straightforward service, and I don't need to dive into it. I just know that this blog post, which I've deployed in the past, does work, so I'm just going to copy it and run with it. But you can dive in here and go to town with all the different settings here. So there's an identity pool and then a identity pool role. And what is this ES Cognito? Okay, so now we need to give access. There is a lot here. This is awesome. They've worked through all this stuff. Okay, so Cognito role. Now we need to give Cognito access for Amazon Open Search. OpenSearch. What is the service? I'm gonna guess it's so now this role is saying it's allowing, okay, what is this doing? It gives open source access to configure Amazon Incognito and user pools. So it's allowing OpenSearch to assume roles for Elasticsearch, or Cognito to assume roles. Let's figure this out. Let's go into, this role gives Amazon OpenSearch permissions. So let's take a look at this. So this is the, you're not going to give me the ARN for this? Oh, no. I'm guessing that's the policy. Let's go on the IAM dashboard and look at, see what's going on there. And we can also pull up in the documentation for OpenSearch to see what's needed there. Okay, so what am I actually looking for? I'm looking for OpenSearch Cognito access. There it is. So this is the policy I want. So instead of recreating this policy, what I can do is just say, here's the policy to use. And it looks like I got the ARN right, but let me just copy and paste it from, yeah, okay, that looked right. And so what I'm worried about is this, the service. So what I need to do is I need to go to my OpenSearch documentation and look for Cognito, identity management. What am I looking for? I'm looking for the replacement for this, which I'm guessing is just OS, but I don't want to make that guess. Here we go. It is still just ES. Okay, so that's fine. Okay, now the auth role for Kibana. Give role authenticate users to ES domain. So let me make sure this is, you know what, it's really difficult to rename the IAM permissions. So you can rename a service. There's ways to do that, but to actually rename all the actions in IAM is really difficult. So you see stuff like this. I know the Amazon Pinpoint service has the same thing, where a lot of the IAM actions are for the legacy name for it, which is eluding me at this point. So this does happen, and it's a little annoying when it does happen. Okay, so now we get to the user pool. Welcome to the office hours indexer, office hours indexer, office hours indexer. This is just like the welcome email. This is really thorough, and I'm very happy that I'm not going through and creating all this from scratch. So email confirmation codes, you get email. So Cognito, you can email a new user and say, here's your login, here's your email username, password, all that stuff. ES Cognito, custom ES name. Okay, so here they're creating a custom resource. And they are calling a Lambda function. What is this Lambda function doing? So I have more code open here. Oh, let me go for here first. So this is the Lambda-based custom resources. You'd configure user pool. What are you doing? Let's see. So here is the GitHub for the blog post that I've been following. That's what I've been in. Okay, so what am I looking for? I'm looking for configure It's in a different folder. Here. What are you doing here? Cool. They're doing a bunch of stuff. Let's copy this. Okay, so let me go get. I don't want that one. I'm just going to go get one of my other Lambda function definitions down here. And I'm actually just going to put it right below here. I'm going to move all this Cognito stuff into its like own section inside of the YAML function, YAML template, so it's kind of all together. But in the meantime, let's create, so code URI, we'll call this Cognito setup. I have another custom resource. So custom resources, so this is a custom CloudFormation resource. It's going to basically call a Lambda function to go and create all the infrastructure. So instead of like having the infrastructure available in YAML, like this is a custom thing that's going to get done by CloudFormation when the CloudFormation is deploying. So this code will only get run when the CloudFormation status is changing. So I have another one, but I was looking to see if I had did some custom naming for it, and I really didn't. Okay, so let me just copy one of these folders. We'll call this Cognito setup. Here it is. And I'm going to replace all of this code with all of this code, just taken directly from the blog post. If I come back, I want to make sure I grab all the requirements. Yes. One of the requirements is this CloudFormation response template, which is managed actually by the CloudFormation team as a dependency. So you could bring it in, and they're using this. So CloudFormation calls the Lambda function, passes it a certain payload, and you have to reply with a certain payload so CloudFormation knows that it was successful or what happened to that. So that's what that is about. Okay, so the handler is going to be a little bit different. So this should be the entry point inside of this. There it is. Cool. Yep. So they're handling different request types. So this is just helping set up all the Cognito stuff that is needed. They seem to have updated the memory and runtime. Totally fine. And then here are the policies that are needed. And this looks fine because I'm copying and pasting a lot of this. So it should be, let me make sure that is. Yep, there it is. Okay, so this sets up, and now I understand they had this as a depends on for the actual Elasticsearch domain. So basically they're saying, wait for this custom CloudFormation thing to happen and go create a bunch of users and report back, hey, I'm done, before creating the OpenSearch domain. And what this means is then when this goes to create, we know that that Lambda has executed successfully and is completed. So now we can continue on. So I think I renamed this. There is one other, so the other thing, excuse me, the other thing that they're doing is they're downloading different podcasts, and you can provide it a podcast RSS feed, and it'll go and like create a whole new setup and space for that podcast, and it'll process all the files underneath that. And so one of the steps in that process when you're adding, and this is all code, so you say like, here's a new RSS feed, go process it, is that during that, it'll go and create indexes for in Elasticsearch, but we're going to do an OpenSearch for that. Our process is different. We're not setting up new things. We only have one thing to set up. So I want to create another custom Lambda resource that when the OpenSearch domain is finished, that we go and create the index. And they're creating the index. If I come back over here, they're creating the index. I'm going to show exactly what I mean by this. Come on. There it is. Why didn't that? Whatever. So again, this is part of there's a state machine to like onboard a new podcast, and this runs through that. And so, but I want to run this, and here you see all the mappings. This aligns to the JSON that we were looking at the start. So I also want to create this. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create another Lambda function. If I can find. Okay, where is Cognito set up? This is going to be a rather. I should probably rename this. I do that sometimes when I copy and paste. Okay, so I want to copy this. And this, I'm going to say, depends on OpenSearch domain. So I'm chaining like these dependencies together. And this is going to be OpenSearch index. I'm just calling it index create. I don't need to get fancy. Okay, so then let's copy this. Call this index create. So again, Sam takes this URI and says, okay, the code for this function exists in this folder. Let me go compile all this stuff together, and then I have like my Lambda source. So here I'm going to grab this function, paste over that. Now this is where we start getting into some of these other dependencies. Oops, I didn't mean to scroll there. Okay, so here we start needing all these other dependencies. So in order to like query Elasticsearch and build up like the auth, like there's a bunch of work they had to do to go and do that. I need to rewrite this so that it will work with OpenSearch, OpenSearch's API. Right, so I don't want to import from Elasticsearch. I want to use the Boto3 OpenSearch stuff, but I'll get to that in just a second. First, I want to make sure I'm capturing all of these requirements that they have, and I may or may not remove all these, but let me just capture it. And then also, we need to make sure that we have the correct permissions for this, because these actions are not the right actions anymore. So let's go through this code here. Again, so what we're doing here is we're creating an index inside of Elasticsearch. When you save data, you put it into an index. You don't have to specify the index ahead of time. You can just start writing data, and Elasticsearch or OpenSearch will try to figure out what the properties of that index are and create it that way, but I much prefer to create them explicitly. So that is what we're going to do. Actually, I need to update this a little bit more. This should be Lambda handler. Let me look at their code for. I just skipped it. Okay, create Elasticsearch index. Memory size 256, timeout 60. Environment variable. This is what I was looking for. I don't need a media convert role, and I definitely don't need a media convert role in this one up here. Does this require any? don't think so. I'll have to go and fix all the logging and that sort of stuff. So I like just bring it into my format. Not that their way of logging is bad, but I just like to be consistent. So this should be, it's not ES domain, is it? OS domain. This is going to drive me nuts if I leave ES Cognito in there. But let me do that. I'll just leave that for right now. Okay. Focus, Ryan. Okay, so now we're passing in the OpenSearch domain as an environment variable. So let's look at the Bado3 OpenSearch documentation. That's really what we're wanting to get to. And so what are we doing here? So I'm hoping to get rid of the region. Let me get rid of that. Full episode index and keywords index. So they're passing in, oh, you can override it. Okay, so full episode index and keyword index, paragraphs versus episodes. Let's call this episode's fine. I hate digging into naming stuff. Like that just gets to be such a pedantic thing. But here, okay, so audio URL. Let's do while we're doing this, actually I want to open this back up too. This is again what's coming out of the transcribe process. Let's do media URL because it's not just audio. We'll do media type, transcript, media S3 location, publish time, summary, source feed. I think all that's fine. I may come back and re-specify some of this as we go. Okay, but what am I trying to do? I'm trying to check, does the index exist? If not, create the index. So we gotta look at ES. The ES variable is an Elasticsearch. So I'm hoping that there's different ways of doing this now. So let's create the OpenSearch client. And what I want to do is look for indexes. I was hoping for an API around indexes. Okay, one of my indexes .exists or indices. List domains. This seems to be just like about the actual server itself, not like what's actually going on inside. Okay, so let's do this. Amazon OpenSearch list. And why can't I spell that word? Managing indices. I'm hoping I get some code samples here. Yeah, this is not what I wanted to be doing. I'll be calling these. Okay, Amazon OpenSearch Bado3 query. That's what I was just looking at. But is there a... What was that? see, I don't want to be in the habit, like I don't want to be forming like raw queries like this. That seems way too detailed. So let's look at their example here. That's what they're doing. We don't have a wrapper for this yet. Okay, will Python that's not what I'm looking for. Yes, I'm not surprising. So there's all kinds of drama I'm trying to stay away from. To Amazon Elasticsearch. No, OpenSearch. Dang it. Okay, search project added. Okay, you're creating forks. Oh, okay, maybe this is what I want to get to. So here, OpenSearch project, part of Amazon. Let's find Python. Python low-level client for OpenSearch. Okay, this is what I'm looking for. This is what I'm looking for. Yes. Okay, so they've recreated. Nice. Okay. So let's just go through and replace a bunch of this stuff. I don't like specifying versions. Okay. So there. So here, now I can say, let's get rid of that. Create the client. So yeah, so the Bot03 client is just to manage the service itself. So you could create new clusters, you could close clusters, you could blah, 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 do all that. We don't want to do that. So we're just going to do it this way. So OS endpoint, OS domain, we'll put that here. Port is going to be 443. Or is it 920? HT compress, yes. Auth is this. Whoa, we don't want that. So hopefully their auth, this auth makes a lot more sense. So we'll use AWS auth. Get rid of that. So it should be the exact same. It just they're basically just managing their own. So use SSL true. Verify search true. SSL assert hostname false. SSL show warn. I probably could have just copied over this. So host, HTTP auth, use SSL, verify certs, timeout. Why not? Okay, so now am I using AWS auth? I am. Credentials, session, why do I need an S3 client? Not entirely sure. OS endpoint, gotcha. Region, am I using region anywhere? I am, okay. For that, perfect. All this is looking good. Okay, so this actually might then work great. But I'm not calling it ES anymore. I'm calling it client. That's my mappings. Okay, so this should work. So this is, again, I'm going to run this at, actually it's not going to work. Not yet, at least. I need to add the cloud CFN stuff, response stuff, which I did here. So let's add this as a requirement. Because again, I want this to run during the life cycle of the CloudFormation. So as CloudFormation is deploying infrastructure, part of the infrastructure I want it to be is an index. So Cognito setup, that's what I have here. I'm looking for this stuff. I'm just going to put this down here. I'm not going to be able to finish this today. I do have a meeting in a few minutes I got to get ready for. But I'll say to do start here to make this. And then the other thing I'll have to do, I need to figure out the permissions, but I also need to make this a custom resource. I did that down here. Oops. That's not what I wanted. Create OS index. So here the service token is that. The action is going to be that. So if I come down here, resource type create. I need to import CFN response. I'm just trying to get through this really quick. Okay, cool. So now I have my custom resource. Actually, this is actually what I want to have the depends. So I want this to execute. This Lambda function can get created whenever. It's not going to execute. It's going to get deployed whenever. But this custom resource is what triggers the Lambda. So I definitely want this to be dependent upon the search domain actually existing so we can create the index in it and have that actually work. So that will be important. Yeah, so I might have to leave it at this point here. We created a bunch of infrastructure. We haven't been able to deploy any of it, which is fine, totally fine. We will work on this again on Monday. I will check this in, although it's not going to deploy. This is definitely going to fail and create bad deployments. But what I have 1 more minute left. What permissions is that actually looking for? What I don't like is the way the blog post created their Lambda functions. They gave it the same role to every single Lambda. So the role actually has like a ton of permissions to it, which I don't like. That's just my preference. I don't think they did it wrong necessarily. It's just not my preference. See here, you can see it is a lengthy policy because it does a lot of different things. And I'd rather it not do all those things. I'd rather it just do what I want it to do, which is more minimal. So I might rename, I will check this in. I might rename a bunch of stuff to make it less Elasticsearch and more OpenSearch. Let's put this down here. Well, let me check it in now. I didn't get to deploy it. It's so sad. We added a lot. So git add, git commit, adding infrastructure for OpenSearch and required not cloud search, incognito, whatever. Git push. All right. That will be it for today. I'll be back on Monday to continue working on this and hopefully get to a point where we have stuff saved inside of our new Elasticsearch database. As you can see, there's a bunch of dependencies, so I'm going to probably be spending a ton of time troubleshooting. I expect to like try to deploy this and the infrastructure just like completely fails, like doesn't even deploy correctly because of all these dependencies. But that's okay. This solution is getting a lot more complicated. We've introduced a ton of resources. Now my CloudFormation template, which is actually written in SAM, which actually means that like it's actually a lot smaller than it could be because SAM allows you to write more concisely. Is getting to be about 1,000 lines of code long, and that's what I just committed in there. So this is going to be a pretty significant backend service, but I love it. I think it's great, and we're covering a lot of different topics. I glossed over a ton of stuff today, but I'm hoping that I don't have to be an expert in Incognito in order to use it. All I know is it gives me a secure way for me to log into a service. In this case, it's going to be open source and the Kibana dashboard to look at my database. And then we'll be able to query that from our skill. So cool. So thanks again for joining me on this trip. Hopefully this is fun and exciting. And I'll see you next time. Thanks again.